Welcome in. It's almost time.
All right, everyone. Welcome in. A2D Radio. We are the Sports Hounds. Doug Mankiewicz, Brad Ryer, myself, Rob Brinkman. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Miss anything, stream us wherever you get your podcasts. Spreaker, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, iTunes. Remember to hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn those notifications on. Don't miss a damn thing here on A2D Radio as we get you through these summer months into football. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We got Game 5 of the NBA Finals, potential closeout game for the Denver Nuggets out in Denver. We have MLB talk. I would like to get both of your guys' thoughts on the Live Golf PGA Tour merger. U.S. Open is this week, one of my favorite weeks of the year, going to be out in L.A. It's great. When you work like a 9-to-5 job on the East Coast, you get the golf on the back end. It's great. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We got some new AirPods, some new equipment here in the studio, so I'm making sure it works perfectly. We're brought to you each and every Monday. Philly Sports Trips, the Philly 5for5 sports travel company, premium travel and tailgating experience for the passionate fans of Philadelphia. Check out our man Vince at phillysportstrips.com. Some Phillies trips left, some Eagles trips upcoming, Tampa, Seattle, LA, Boston, week 1, play the Patriots. We're also brought to you by Baguio Breads, located in Mount Laurel. That's Baguio's Breads, home of the breast stuffed breads, tomato pie, sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs. Mention A2D Radio for 10% off your in-store purchases. Let's get it started off. Let's talk with some MLB talk. We'll get to some NBA closer to 8:30 to tip off, and then we'll mix in. I just got to unload tonight on the PGA Tour commissioner, Jay Monahan. I'll do that at some point. Haven't really had an epic freak out with you yet, Doug. So you might hear it tonight. I just don't understand how you can do a complete 180 and just all of a sudden
money's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's blood money, and then a year later, it's not blood money anymore. So
when he gets it, it's not blood money.
No.
Right.
No, not at all. When his roster's getting raided and the sponsors are pissed off, then it's blood money. It's hilarious. It's just a hilarious saga this is going to be, and now they're all going to be able to play together. I would assume. I don't have all the details yet, but they're all in LA this week for the U.S. Open, so I don't know if it's going to be contentious or what. They've gotten along at the first 2 majors. I don't know, but let's talk some baseball. Phillies yesterday, they take 2 or 3 from the Dodgers. Seems like
they were gift wrapped that game. You didn't have to face Gonsolin, so let's not get too crazy.
Yeah, we faced him on Saturday.
No, not Gon. Who was supposed? Somebody was supposed to pitch yesterday, and they didn't. They ended up getting an extra day of rest.
A bullpen game.
Right.
They did a bullpen game. That's not the Phillies' fault.
Well, no, I'm just saying they kind of gave you a gift. They still beat the crap out of you in L.A., so let's not get too carried away. The Phillies are still a 500 team right now. There's no
500's leading one division.
Huh?
500's winning one division.
Yeah, but that division doesn't count.
That's true.
It doesn't count.
That's a AAA division.
Look, I mean,
that's coming from a guy that's got the Marlins in second place. They've been a high school team for decades.
Decades. How about Luis? How about Araz coming over from Minnesota, hitting 400 in the National?
I had him before, and Rod Carew does not give out hitting compliments very often.
Right.
And like I said, I heard about him, and I think he was 16. He won a batting title in the Venezuelan Winter League. And to do that at 16, there's some guys that play in that summer, that Winter League. I was over there in 99, I know, and there's some guys that play in that, like real – I mean, Maglia Ordonez played, Luis Sojo. I mean, there's some big league talent there. And he won a batting title at 16, and he's never stopped hitting since. And I think everybody that – like every true baseball person in Minnesota, and their and their coaching staff and their developmental side knew what he was about. Our big thing was, where is he going to play? And, like I said, I had him for like one game when he tore his ACL. He hit the bag at first base, funny, and he tore his ACL. And he came up to me and apologized for tearing his ACL because he's going to be the only player I had that year, really, like in the first half at least. Really true, like, prospect I had. And just, real can be. And, he competes every pitch, and he just outworks people. And Rod Carew gave him, he's like, I saw this coming, and, he's the closest thing to a throwback we got. And he just finds a way to get the barrel to the ball. And like that batting title last year, I saw something last week about they compared his stats to Tony Gwynn's in their first 400 games. And, like, Luis's numbers are better. I know that's hard to keep up to do for 20-some years, and I think Tony Gwynn is probably the best pure hitter that's ever lived as far as average goes. And Luis is right there with him. So, probably thankful that I wasn't in the Twins' developmental side or on the still as a Twin. I would have probably held on to him with both hands, grabbing his ankles to not let him trade him. But, in their defense, they got a
pretty good pitcher.
They got and that's the only way I think you really make that deal is if, one, you don't think he can do it again, and two, if you can trade a bat for a legit starter in the big leagues, you have to do it. And that's the downfall of the business side. But he can flat out hit, and he can play everywhere, and he doesn't slump. And it's just he finds a way to get hits, and he's on a roll. Hitting 400 this late in the year is doing something. It's hitting 400 in the first month.
He won a batting championship last year.
Yeah, he's going to win one of them nationally too.
He is, and he's going to be him and LeMahieu are going to be the only two to
he
accomplish
takes what
that.
the game gives him, and you don't see that in today's game. Like the pitcher's working him away, he'll go away. The pitcher's, he can beat you. He uses the whole field, and he's a true pure hitter. And like the knack of getting the barrel to the ball is there's something to be said about that, and he does that. He's got tremendous hand-eye coordination, and he's a great kid. He's a man now, but it's fun to watch him hit.
Yeah, he's something else.
I was critical of the trade. I thought the Twins should have held on to him, but I guess you need a pitcher like Pablo. First of all,
not like Pablo's old either. Pablo's pretty young. And unless the Marlins knew something that no one else did medically, as much as I would have tried to tackle Luis for leaving, for keeping him with me, but I thought it was at the time when he did it, I was like, man, what are the Marlins doing? They finally got arms, and they're going to get rid of them. But you got to do what you got to do to get offense in certain situations. You got to get creative, and they did, and they tried it. But I know, going back to what you said before about the Phillies, it's about who you play when, and that's. I looked at the schedule, and you have a chance to make a run here in the next 4 or 5 weeks where you got Oakland, you run into some teams that you should take care of, and they'll make this could be a nice little time to make a move for them.
Now, I thought that this was coming a couple weeks ago, and then they went out to LA and got swept. And then they came home and played Boston and lost 2 or 3. But I don't know. Turner's hitting. Now, Topper, I know that you play with him, and he's a great baseball guy. He's shuffling this lineup around a lot. I don't know. We talked about it last week. Like, no one really understood why Trey Turner was 4th when he was slumping so bad, protecting Harper. But it works. The guy hits 2 home runs while we're on the air, hitting the cover off the ball. Schwarber, I don't know. I know he's not the typical leadoff hitter, but I guess he likes it up. Some guys like it up there. They're comfortable up there, even though they may not be the prototype of guy. Then I go to the games on Sunday, the home games on Sunday in Philly. Total disaster. Philadelphia's a total disaster right now. That bridge collapsed. The Ben Franklin Bridge was closed. Total disaster. They spent 30 years building this bridge, Doug, in Philadelphia, and it fell down like the first week it was open. Crazy. Yeah, crazy. Crazy. But, yeah, I go to Sunday games, and then the lineup, it's all shuffled again.
You have to shuffle the lineup a little bit for day games. Because, you're Bryce coming off the Tommy John. You got some older guys you kind of want to give a break to. That's where I thought the DH, universal DH, can help everybody because you can give someone you can get off their feet. You can get off their legs, let them hit. Some guys can't handle a DH. But like you talk about Schwarber hitting leadoff. Yeah, his average isn't what he should be, but like he's led off for multiple teams and been successful. And I think there's something to be said about when you can throw that at bat at someone, the first at bat of a game, like you're walking into a heavyweight bout from the first hitter on. Like there's no breather. I mean, he's not like just one of these, mashers who, he can hit. He doesn't chase and he gets on base and he
if he walks a lot,
what's that?
If he walks a lot, I mean, that's a walk is as good as a single. I mean,
you use the word, like I like to use the word, does he have a presence? The presence at the plate is huge.
Oh, yeah.
And his presence is, as big as anybody's in the big leagues. I mean,
you have to be very careful when you're pitching to him.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you better have it dialed in when he gets up there because he can hurt you in a heartbeat. And if he's comfortable doing it, I mean, like with the way the game is now, when guys don't run, who cares? I mean, you're just trying to, and plus, I know through the minor league, being a minor league manager, you realize that like if you look at the lineup, like over time, you actually pay attention to how many at bats these guys get during a season just because of where they hit in the order, and those at bats add up over time. And you want a guy who has home run power. The more times he goes up, the better chance he has of adding to his home run total. I know minor leagues look at it differently. I always try to put like the prospect guys up higher, just because whether they were struggling a little bit, like you might move them down to protect them moving up a little bit. But at the same token, I wanted to put my prospects up at the top order, whether they were, whether they're a leadoff hitter or whether they might be a 3-hole hitter at the big league level. It doesn't really matter. The more times they go to the plate, the faster they're going to get there and the more experience they're going to have on the way up. So, and that kind of flips to the big leagues to where you have Schwarber. I mean, you definitely want to give, to me, a prototypical leadoff hitter, as much as I love the old school lineup, kind of the way it's, the way it's done. Having Schwarber getting 30 or 40 more plate appearances, whatever it equates to have a chance to pop one, yeah, you're going to give him that opportunity.
Now you said
odds are he'll hit 4 more homers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got 17. I mean, that's got to be on pace for
35, 38,
40.
40.
He
gets
40
hot
in June. Yeah.
And then that park's going to play smaller as it gets warmer. And not that he needs any help, but like that's not a fun line. I mean, my question is, why do they struggle on the road? Like, why? I try to look at the schedule and try to see, they run into a juggernaut early, but like, man, like that team to me is.
Well, they did the first 4 games of the season.
Why? Because they played the Yankees?
The first 3 games of the season when they played Texas.
Oh yeah, well, in Texas, like I said, you look at it's funny how every year's different. I get it, but like you look at this is about the time when you start to look at Texas leading their division, right? You look at the Marlins being in second place. Like you start to get to that mid-June area, and where does your reputation kick in? Good teams older guys or more veteran-laden guys start to figure it out, and here they come, steady as she goes. You get those younger teams that maybe haven't won, maybe they're not young, but they're Texas has been adding pieces for a couple of years.
Pittsburgh and Baltimore too.
You start to see. Well, they start to go through that. Holy crap! It's still middle of June. We still got 3.5 more months to go. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I know. I go back to the Twins times when Twins teams I was on. When 2001, we hit the All-Star break and we were like, oh my gosh! It's the first time that group's ever won in the big leagues. We had a great first half, got off to a great start. And I remember, I think we had a 5 or 6 game lead on Cleveland that year, the All-Star break. And we lost our shortstop, Christian Guzman, the first game after the All-Star break, going, I don't know if we can hold these guys off. And it was like Tomei and, Juan Gonzalez, Robbie Alomar, Sandy Alomar Sr., Bartolo Colon, CC was a rookie. It's like, I don't know if we can hold these guys off. And but then the next year, we kind of understood what we were up against a little more, and the experience kind of kicked in for us. But you start to look up and you're like, uh-oh. You start realizing what you're doing and you're like, oh my gosh, these teams behind us are really good. I don't know if we can hold them off. But This, some teams are young and some teams are, like I said, lack of a better term, they're you can't phase them. They don't look at that stuff. And, Baltimore might be one of those examples.
I think Baltimore's for real, Doug.
I don't think they're not for real. I think youth at times, you don't realize how hard it is to win for how long you have to win just to get there. Whereas a veteran type team has an idea, guys that have been there before realize we got time. You don't want to coast, but you're not coasting, but you understand that we're going to make our move. And when you start, and I know if I were the Phillies, right, and I was chasing someone like, let's say, a Texas, or even let's just say Florida, you just sit there and you're like, just keep it close, keep close. And we start to creep, and then you start to add a game here, add a game there, and next thing you know, middle of September, you have a series against them, and you just, you put your foot on the gas and go. What's
close, in your opinion?
3.5, 4.5, depends on how late it is. What
about right
depends
now?
On, and that's the thing too. It's I always talk about, it's not about who you play, it's when you play them. Injuries. What injury is going to be can you avoid? And sometimes those teams get that injury late, or you chase them down. I mean, now's not a bad time to play the Mets because Alonso's out. You know what I mean? They're playing him pretty soon. They play him, I think, next week. So that's every little advantage like that helps when you're trying to chase people down.
Yeah, or the Yankees. Yankees have lost Judge, and the Yankees are under 500. They're 3 or 4 games under 500 now without Judge.
Well, they just they're not built to win in October. I don't care what anybody says. They're not.
The addition of Rodon may change things when he's pitching.
Why? What has he done in the postseason that I'm not aware of? I'm just curious.
He hasn't pitched in the postseason.
Correct.
But he's got a track record of being a very good pitcher.
Yeah, but there's a lot of really good pitchers that don't pitch well in October.
I also attribute that to the fact that it's a long season, and sometimes those guys just run out of gas in October too. I think that's the case with Kershaw. I think that's always been the case with Verlander. I don't think that they're choking.
Kershaw just ran into he had a couple bad innings. I wouldn't say he had bad outings, but you're right. He ran out of gas because he was the starter, setup guy, and closer for those early Dodger years, and they didn't have anybody else. Well. It's I look at it this way. I look at the Yankee lineup. Who scares you in October?
Judge.
Okay.
Stanton.
No.
You don't get scared when Stanton is.
Stanton was on fire last year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he
was. Didn't go anywhere.
Huh?
They didn't go anywhere.
Now, last year,
you can't live with the LCS. The LCS is a failure.
Stanton missed 2 months in the second half of the season, and he never really got on track. That was the problem.
But what does the last 2 months have to do with the postseason? I get what you're saying. Stanton was great last October.
He barely hit. He didn't get any at bats. That's what I'm saying. He didn't get enough at bats.
What are the bats in the last 2 months? Let's put it this way. And a bat in August has absolutely no. And a bat in September, the last game of the season, has zero.
No, but if you're not getting it, if you're out for 2 months, if you're out for July and August, okay, you're trying to get some at bats in September to get your timing back. I don't think he truly got his timing back.
Your timing, whatever you do the last game of the season, or the last 2 weeks, the last month, has nothing to do with your timing on it, because you don't. That's the one thing. Playoff baseball, you play every day. You're used to playing every day, especially in the early, now the wild card stuff. But the division series back in the day, when they didn't have the wild card round, you would not have a game for 2 days, play a game, off day, play a game, off day, play a game. Your timing doesn't. I mean, it's the closest thing to college baseball you're going to get, because there's so many off days in the middle of it. And that's why the short series are so hard, especially the 5-gamer, because you can play every other day. And that's something that players are not used to. But I get what you're saying, but at the same token, they did, my point is, Judge didn't have a horrible postseason, but what's construed.
He had a really bad postseason last year.
But it wasn't but that's my point. Do you want him walking? Do you want him passing the baton? if he's not, it's up to the other guys. Like, well, who else in the lineup is going to force you to pitch to Aaron Judge?
Well, they've got Rizzo and they've got Stanton. They've got guys who can hit.
Oh, Rizzo, okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you put those guys together,
okay, whose lineup of the postseason teams last year would you rank the depth of the Yankee lineup against every team that made the postseason?
They probably were not as good as Houston. Houston probably had the best lineup in the league.
Correct. The Phillies lineup was deeper.
Yeah, but not better.
Deeper.
But not better. Yankees had better hitters on their team.
You can eliminate swing and miss people are like.
So are you going to tell me that Bryce Harper is better than Judge? Because I think if you do, you're running it. In any time. Did they win? Did the Phillies win a championship with him?
Has Judge ever gotten to the World Series?
Nope.
Correct.
Did he play in a league?
World Series?
He played in a league with pathetic teams. Come on. San Diego had no pitching. San Diego had no pitching, period, at all. Atlanta had young pitching, and they're not ready, and they weren't ready for it last year.
I mean, they won 100 games. They win 100 games.
They won 87 games, guys. They won 87 games.
Phillies
they even deserve to make the playoffs.
What does the regular season have to do with October? That's my point.
You should earn your way to the playoffs. Winning 87 games and coming in 7th place is a bit of a joke. The commissioner did that to make more money. They were not really a playoff team. They got there by default.
How many rings are in the Yankee lineup right now? There's one.
One that
Correct.
I know of.
Right.
Who is it? I can't even. I'm going.
Rizzo.
Rizzo. Okay, with the Cubs.
Cole.
But Cole's not. He doesn't play. He's a pitcher.
Well, you asked how many rings
are in the lineup?
In the lineup. Yeah, probably one.
You can't have just one guy. I think the Dodgers proved that in Kershaw. Like you need lineup.
Yeah, but he
depth.
finally did. They finally did win. It's not right now. Their lineup is pathetic because they're not scoring any runs.
Well, duh.
They don't have Judge in the middle. They don't have Judge in the middle of the order, and basically they're pitching around Stanton and around Rizzo, and they're not getting anything to hit, and they're trying to force the issue.
And every guy in that lineup outside of Rizzo and LeMahieu, the LeMahieu injury last year was what killed him. He's the only guy that will take what the pitcher gives him.
Problem with LeMahieu
that whole lineup is a swing and miss waiting to happen.
I think LeMahieu right now, I think has had it. He's just not. I don't know if he's still hurt from last year. Just doesn't seem like he's been striking out a lot. He just hasn't been the same player this year.
I've never seen solo homers win a playoff series.
Well, you got to get guys on base. I would agree with that.
Right.
They had somebody who could have gotten on base last year. He got hurt. It was Benintendi. Benintendi last year hit 300, and when he came to the Yankees, first 10 days were a little rough, but after that he got hot, and the Yankees were winning games, and they were getting on base, and Judge was hitting 2-run home runs and 3-run home runs, and that's not in October. No, Benintendi was hurt. Benintendi was hurt though.
You can't argue with a Yankee fan. It's physically. Because you guys are always so optimistic. I love it. You're so optimistic until they fail, and then you want to crucify them all.
No, I'm not crucifying anybody. I'm just saying the facts is, for whatever happened, LeMahieu hurt his foot, and he hasn't been the same. And they didn't have Benintendi, and those are the two guys that made contact and were hitting in front of the big guys. And if they're not on base, then the best these guys can do is hit solo home runs, and that was the difference. That's what killed him. And Nestor getting hurt in game four, having to start. And it was their own. It's the Yankees' own fault for having to go 5 games with Cleveland. But I mean, they should have been able to put them away quickly instead of going 5. But because they had to go 5, Cole didn't start the series. They had to start with Tyone. It's not that easy. It's not that easy sometimes, and you can't compare the American League and the National League. The National League is so inferior right now to the American League. It's almost criminal and a joke. Look at the records of the teams. It's ridiculous to see that a team that's
the American League has a 500 team winning their division right now.
They also have a 500 team in last place.
There's a 500 team leading the division right now.
Yeah, but there's a 500 team in last place.
Let's put it this way. The Detroit Tigers are 4.5 or 5.5 games back in the American League. Give me a break.
And they're god awful.
Right. The whole division.
So is the National League Central.
Correct.
Okay. Like, they both have that, but the National League East stinks. They still stink. And you know,
Braves
look at the
stink?
National League. Huh?
The Braves stink.
Other than the Braves, who's really
just curious? When's the last time the Yankees won a championship?
2009.
Correct.
But they've been in the playoffs.
Won?
But they've been in the playoffs 2 years ago. But they've been in the playoffs every year. They just haven't been able to win.
Yankee fans don't care about getting to the playoffs.
Well, maybe some of them do and some of them don't. I think you got to get there first. And you know what?
Oh, of course. But
you know, look, if you're going to compare them to, say, Boston's come in last place, 2-3 years in a row now? So
would you take 2 last place finishes to have their ring since 2004?
Since 2004? What about the other 80 years?
I wasn't alive then, so I don't.
Yeah, but they still count.
Nobody cares about 80 years.
No one cares about the night.
You know what? You want to throw it away. If you want to throw it away, that's because
we're talking about now, though. I'm just telling you, the Yankee lineup is not built to win in October. It's not.
Well, right now it's not. No, you're right.
It hasn't been for years.
Especially if Judge is going to be hurt.
It hasn't.
They have
been
no
for
chance.
Years.
They won't even finish above 500 if Judge doesn't get back in the lineup. But they need an addition. They need a guy in left field who can actually hit 280, 290, get on base, steal some bases, and be a force.
Okay, so who do you get rid of to go get that?
You're probably going to have to get rid of either Volpe or Peraza, one or the other. I mean, they're not going to get rid of.
You guys got lightning in a bottle with Harrison Bader. That was a complete.
He's a center fielder, and he's a pretty good player, and I like him, but he's hurt. He's hurt too right now.
He hits 200 every year.
He
had a great postseason. Not hating on him.
He hit well last year when he came to the Yankees, and this year
when he came to the Yankees, but like that's a small sample size.
True. It's 40 games, but he has done a pretty good job as far as being with the Yankees. He didn't hit 200. I think
he's hit better. He's hit better as a Yankee than he has anywhere else.
Oh, he's hit way better with the Yankees than he did with St. Louis.
And that happens too. That happens sometimes. They need more. But like I just feel like they haven't construed a lineup built for October in a long time.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong about that. They did try to address it last year. Unfortunately, the guy they picked up got hurt. That was Benintendi for some.
They're way more. They're way more away than one move. They need like 4 or 5 guys. Like their lineup is just like it's not like I'm taking this as a manager's perspective. Like
right.
Yeah, if we don't pitch and we make mistakes with our number 4 and 5, they're going to murder us. But when you roll into Verlanders of the world, I guarantee you he will never say it. But rolling into that lineup, going, if I make my pitches, this is a cakewalk. Like this is like these guys will chase.
You could say that about 99% of the major league teams, though.
I don't know about that.
Well, if a guy like Verlander's on his game, nobody's going to hit him.
You wear him down. You can have a chance to wear him down. Like when you have guys that are prone to that aren't going to make adjustments. That's what I'm saying. Like they're all one dimensional. If they don't hit it over the fence, they're done. You can't say that about there's ways to beat teams without having to do that.
Oh yeah, playing small ball is definitely a good way.
Not even small ball. It's just being able to take you have to grind and wear guys out, and not the ability to foul pitches off is a lost art. Look back to your Yankee teams, Chuck Knobloch, those guys.
I know
Bernie,
Johnny Damon too.
Johnny,
they had some.
Paul O'Neill.
Yeah, no,
those
I realize
guys absolutely wore you down.
I realize that.
Brad
Right now, the only guys that are really capable of doing that are Rizzo and LeMahieu.
I think Rizzo is. I thought the Rizzo pickup was whatever it was 2 or 3 years ago. I was like, he's going to put MVP type numbers up there, because he's
right now he's been the last week he's been in a slump, and by coincidence that's because Judge got hurt, because he's not hitting behind Judge now. And there's a big difference. That's why he's in a slump. That's why Stanton's in a slump. When he's not there,
guy, I don't think it matters where Stanton hits in the order. If he's He's
No,
he's
yeah,
up
but
and down.
but when you have him hitting behind Judge or behind Rizzo, when you have them back to back to back, it does matter. Right now, nobody is hitting on that team.
Oh,
And
that goes into my point.
That's the problem.
You traded for Giancarlo Stanton, who you know is going to be hurt 33% of the time.
Listen, I was not altogether that thrilled to see them get him. He was not the guy I was looking to get.
You remember who they traded, Brad? Who they trade for Stanton?
They didn't really trade anybody worth note.
Right, because the Marlins.
It's not really what you give up. It's the fact that you have $30 million tied to one guy.
So you view Stanton as an anchor.
They gave up Caleb. What the hell is this? I can't remember his last name. Caleb.
I'll get it. I'll bring it up.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying again. I'm not downplaying these guys. I just don't think when I saw it, I was like, that's just I don't get that. Like I don't get that. Like it's. And has nothing to do with that I dislike or like the player. It's just like I'm looking at like lineup construction, right? I'm looking at payroll flexibility. Even with the Yankees, you still can't have.
Well, they don't have payroll flexibility anymore. Their owner is not willing to spend the money anymore, like George did.
Well, yeah, but you can't do it like the way George did it back then. You can't. It's almost impossible.
Well, the Mets did it. They play in the same market as the Yankees.
The Mets stink.
The Mets stink.
This is true. No, and the Mets.
You just nailed my point. If you don't have young talent coming up, you're screwed. Look at the Astros. They're sprinkled their superstars. They have elite players at third.
Well, they get and then they are able to get a guy like Tucker in there and Pena, and now this guy Dubon who's replaced Altuve. I mean, I know. The Astros have an unbelievable farm system.
And that's the hard part of being in a big market because most big market fans don't have the patience. They don't want to hear about what they have down there. They want results now. And that's the game that big league executives play, like front offices. They have to battle because you have to make a move. You got to go get guys, and you look in the cupboards bare, and you're like, because like I said, it always goes back to, especially with an older team, you better be 45 to 50 players deep that have major league experience because you're going to have to use 12, 14 starters at least, right? Somewhere in there, and whereas you have your 5 starters in the big leagues, and you better have. If you're lucky, you hope you only have to use 2 or 3 of them down there that can help you when those guys go down. But they better be experienced guys, or they better hit lightning in a bottle. And that's the like the tangled web you weave it. Like when you put all your eggs in, this offense or this defense or this pitching staff, because it's like you're one injury away, and it changes your whole complexion of what you're doing. And that's where baseball, I think, is so different than. It's more like to me like the NFL because the NBA they all get paid, right? So, and obviously you lose one guy to 12, it's huge, but you don't have to pay, that intelligent.
No, the disparity in losing a basketball, unless it's your best player, then it's not that big of a factor.
I look at Judge, look at the Judge thing last year. Like the Yankees had to sign him, they had to.
Well, of course they did.
But knowing that it was going to take up whatever the percentage of the payroll, if you look at the history, that's not really conducive to winning clubs. I mean, look at the Angels. They had Pujols, they had Trout and Ohtani, and Mike Trout hasn't played a playoff game since he was 21. So it's like that's the hard part. You can't.
Well, the Angels have not had a decent pitching staff other than having Ohtani on the team since I can remember. Really, it's been a long time.
They were. I mean, like I said, when my back end of my career, gosh almighty, it was like
they had good pitchers. They had
holy moly.
Yeah, they had a lot of good pitchers back then. I mean, they had the guy who used to go on the mound and squint.
Oh, Percival.
Troy Percival, who would, if I was a hitter and I saw him looking in and squinting his eyes like he can't even see where he's throwing the ball,
It didn't really bother me because I saw him do that. And I closed my eyes and hope I swung and hope I hit it. So it was kind of an even match.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are brave to go in there against somebody like that because he looks like he doesn't know where he's throwing the ball. But meanwhile, it's 100 miles an hour, and he would hit corners with it. And really, back then, nobody threw that as hard as he did.
And they had K-Rod. They had K-Rod setting up for him, right?
Well, that's what. Like I said, I go back to that 2002 was
Oakland
went on that 21-game winning streak, and all the attention went to Oakland. But that same 21-game stretch, I think the Angels only lost 3 games in that whole entire stretch. They went like 18-3 or something, and that's when they brought up K-Rod and Donnelly, and like those 2 pieces in their bullpen. When you don't see someone till the playoffs, you're trying to get information on the fly and huge at bats, and it didn't matter with his stuff. His stuff was electric anyways. But but by the way, don't get me started on the whole mile per hour thing from then, because it's definitely measured different now than what it was then.
Oh, you think they add a few miles per hour?
Well, I don't think they add. I think it's I know for a fact it's not the same measure. Like if you threw 92 miles an hour on the old ray gun, it was a billion miles an hour, and it was now they measured. Don't hold me to this, but I know there's some of it's out of the hand, some of it's crossing the plate, and if you look at TV. When a guy from today, or take a guy like Nolan Ryan in the 70s, the ball disappears faster on Nolan Ryan than it does now. And if you read what the radar gun says when Nolan was thrown, I saw something where one of Nolan Ryan's pitches was 100.8 or whatever in like 1972. They used today's gun, that'd have been like 108. And I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it with
I fully believe you, because guys who were swinging at his pitches were so far behind it. A guy like Frank Thomas, who nobody could throw a fastball past him. He was able to hit that. He was able to hit Nolan Ryan. So,
but I mean, I just know that I had guys in AAA that were consistent 93, 94. And then obviously adrenaline, don't get me wrong, but like sustained velocity. And then you get up there in the big leagues and it's 99, 98. And you're like, okay, like I get it. Like, and I know everybody throws harder, and on average, this they do. But to say they didn't throw hard 20 years ago, that's not valid. That's a disingenuous statement to the guys that pitched in the 90s and 2000s, because there's a lot of guys that threw hard.
What about guys I watched Craig Kimbrell pitch the last week, 10 days. He's kind of stepped up, and he's kind of got this fountain of youth thing going. He's been locked down the 9th inning for the Phillies. I'm looking up at the radar gun yesterday. It's 96, 97. And I look at it on TV, it's 96, 97. But it looks a lot harder than that. It looks triple digits. Do guys have deceptive speed like that?
Oh yeah, it's that's what people don't understand. Like trying to argue that as a ex-player, as a developer or a coach, they would always spit out numbers, 92 to 95. I'm like, okay, but it doesn't play that hard. Like,
well, he also has a big stride too. True, too.
And there's all kinds. Like, don't get me wrong. Like the guys that are dissecting pitching now, like that's the one thing I give that Ray's tremendous amount of credit for. They'll take guys and resurrect them, and they know which guys to attack and which guys to go get and to fix, so to speak, the way they fix them. But there's definitely something to how it plays. There were guys I faced that the radar gun would say 98, and you look up and be like, that felt like 88. And then there's guys that threw at 88 that you're like, that felt like 110. And it's all about deception. And I always say this, I always tell the analytic guys that I've worked with, I was like, the hitter will tell you everything you need to know about a guy's fastball.
Well, Doug, I'll give you an example, and you probably faced this guy. Okay, David Robertson supposedly never threw anything over 92. Okay, but he had that incredibly long stride, and he struck a lot of guys out with his fastball, and he had that forkball.
It played off a lot.
I'm not sure. Yeah, it seemed like he played his fastball really played well because he had such a long stride.
Like Mo didn't exactly Mo wasn't like, oh my gosh, he throws 100, but it got
Well,
all
when he
over
first
you.
came up, he did as a starter, but he was a failed starter.
But like it wasn't. I know for like Mo would throw over on a pickoff throw to first, and I'd be like, I have to really pay attention because this thing's cutting and it's all over me. So like even from that close, like he had my attention. And Andy Pettit was the same way. But like Mo when Mo was angry when a guy got on first, like his arm speed didn't change, but the ball came out harder. And that's like it's just amazing how I always say the hitter will tell you everything you need to know about a guy's fastball. And that's whether it's an A-ball guy, a double-A guy, a triple-A guy, big league guy. If they're like taking comfortable hacks, they're picking it up really well. And it doesn't matter what that number says. But so don't get all wrapped up. And yes, we all want velo and all that stuff and spin rate and all that stuff. But I said that's the stuff where hitters at every level will tell you what his fastball, how it plays. And that tells you what about stuff versus numbers.
Well, that would be true. That would be true, especially with Chapman. Because last year, Chapman, now before he lost his control and couldn't throw a strike with a telescope, his fastball was playing at 101 to 102, and they were smacking it all over the place.
And that's also like that's what it goes back to what Mo did. Like you knew it was coming, and you still couldn't do anything about it. It was you had no shot.
Yeah, but they were smacking Chapman around last year, though.
And it's almost because, like, I feel like when he throws too many strikes, that's what happens. Like, when he first came up, it wasn't fun. Like, it wasn't like you were scared for your life. Like, this guy's going to throw a ball at my Adam's apple, and he's not going to care at all. And the fact it's like it felt like the ball came. It only traveled like 9 feet from his hand to the glove, and you had no shot of. First reaction for me was don't get hit in the head and then try to foul it off. And if you strike out, I remember Joe Torre pinch hit me in a spring training game when I was with the Dodgers, and they brought him in. And I kept looking over at him like, all right, are you going to like send up one of the right-handed kids to go see this? And Scott Rowland was screaming from the third base going, get in there and take your medicine. And I was like, what do I do? And Joe's like, I'm tired of hearing you talk today, so go get your AB. And I'm like,
oh boy,
man, I'm like, damn, Joe. And I came back. I think I fouled one off. And I'm like, I own him because I'm so happy I fouled one off. Like I was like, see, I'm ready, Skip. And he just goes, okay, get out of my face and get out of the dugout. So that's like I was like, come on, man. Like, will you make me face this in Arizona when there's no batter's eye and this guy's coming out of my ear flap? I'm like, this isn't fun. I don't deserve this. I'm sorry. Whatever I said about you today, Joe, I take it back. I apologize. Like, and Donnie's back there giggling, and I'm like, this is not fun. But that was
what about Randy Johnson? Did you ever face him?
Oh yeah. I faced Randy later on. I faced Randy when he was in Arizona, like the second time, and I will say this. Like another thing too is like I remember facing him in Pittsburgh one day, and his stuff was, for Randy was very average. Probably the velo wasn't there, but we faced him the next start in Arizona, and it was significantly different. So that's another thing too. It's like you can, some guys for something other than they might feel healthy, but it's just not come out of their hand that day. And other guys, 4 days later, it might be coming out at a different, that's where here's a good example. Okay. I had a kid, Alex Wimmers made it to the big leagues with the Twins, but he was a first rounder from Ohio State, didn't throw hard. Threw like 90, 91, but had an elite changeup. And this is a double-A. And we're trying to find something, really had a bat, not really cutting it as a starter, didn't have a 3-pitch mix. Long story short, I had him in double-A and he became a reliever. And he kept throwing because the Twins were adamant about him being a 50-50 guy, right? 50% changeup, 50% fastball. And the ball was coming out of his hand like 94, fastball, 95. And you, no matter what league you play in, you start to develop a reputation. Guys have seen you in all of the leagues, and they all move up together. So they all knew they had a changeup. A long story short, he came out and his fastball was 94, 95, and he kept throwing 50% changeups, and they kept waiting for it, and they were hitting the changeup. I was like, Alex, here's a great example. When the fastball is coming out of your hand really well, use it that night. like hide your changeup. Like guys that are sitting on your changeup, throw your fastball. And the days that the fastball's not coming out of your hand, throw more changeups. So that's where like the preemptive map out of a baseball game, you can't really do that because what happens if, like for example, what happened to Alex? The ball was coming out of his hand really well, and you could have thrown 85, 90% fastball and gotten away with it. And that's where, you can have all the plans you want, but you better have people on the bench or on like in the game that can go ahead and make that adjustment on the fly or have a catcher you trust to go ahead and see that and keep going with it to be successful right here and now.
How quickly can you adjust as a hitter or as a team to a guy like, okay, we're facing Randy Johnson tonight, but he doesn't have that pop on his fastball.
You sense it, you can see it. I mean, you can see, but it goes back to you see how the reaction of the guys that are hitting in front of you, the guys that are hitting behind you. Me being a left-handed hitter, if I know Nate McLouth was on that team, and I remember seeing Nate's reaction to his slider. And I was like, well, Nate had an all-star year that year. The all-star game was in Yankee Stadium that year. Nate had a hell of a year. So I could see he didn't flinch really. The slider didn't phase him. And he came back and he's like, it's not really doing much. And so that's like lets you in on like, okay, well, thank you for that. You give each other data to be like, okay, well, I remember when we faced him in Arizona, I hit 2-hole that game for the Pirates, and I came back going, it's significantly different than it was last week. So, like, you just let your guys know, like, it's coming out of his hand pretty well. It's cutting, get it ready because it's not what you saw last week. So, I mean, that's the type of stuff that's what makes you a hitter, and that's what makes you, stay in the league a long time, that you'll be able to do that on the fly and kind of adjust, and here we go.
So, what do you do then? You just sit fastball? Or if the fastball's popping, you just sit slider? I
very rarely sat off speed. I wasn't like situational lefties, certain ones that you face 20, 30 times, maybe.
Right.
But my problem was like if I sat something, I never finished the sentence. So like, let's say I'd sit slider off somebody or sit changeup. I never let it, well, I'm going to sit changeup, but it has to be a strike. So if let's say, guessed right, I swung. And I felt that it kind of did more damage to me than it helped me. And meaning like I would, just because I guessed the right pitch, I would swing and I'd put it in play. And I'd be like, man, what are you doing? Like, if you would have just stay on your fastball. But there's percentages to it. Like there's, certain counts you'll be 100% fastball. Like 3-0. I remember 2-0 back when I played was in the American League. It was like a 60-40 fastball off-speed count. And then like you kind of just take chances. And, as the count got deeper, you stayed on to the fastball, but you had that secondary pitch in the back of your head. So it all depends. That's the cat and mouse game that makes this game so amazing. And that's why that's why most people love it and most people hate it at the same time. They don't understand that little mental grind you go through with yourself on a daily basis.
No, as fans, I think we all appreciate it. That's why we like it so much, because it's just I love the center field camera, because you can see where the catcher is lining up. You can see how they're trying to pitch the guy. And you sit there and say, okay, is he going to make an adjustment to an inside pitch, and try to inside out it, or is he going to just back off from the plate just the slightest bit when and hope the catcher doesn't see it so he can get some good wood on it? I mean, that's always something that I can appreciate watching. I mean, not that I could ever do anything about it,
but I mean, like we used to do stuff like
the game. But
whenever we had spring training in Minnesota, we had this beautiful auditorium and spring training site, and different levels of coaches, we'd go over certain topics. I remember like I had a segment of a guy on first base and you're hitting, and how we basically rolled the tape for like 2 pitches, and the staff, we talked for like 45 minutes of how much can change between pitch to pitch. And that's the inside stuff that like most people don't see, that gets lost in it, but how the game changes so much from one pitch to the next.
All right, so we got a game. Phillies out west. Now 4 with Arizona. They got 3 with Oakland. Then they come back home. They got the Mets, Braves, and I think they could do a Florida swing with Tampa and Miami, and that takes you to the All-Star break.
Which is
Not
Phillies
easy.
have
Not easy, except for Oakland. Not easy.
well, Arizona's good, which, by the way, I predicted 1,000% correctly.
Yes, you
in our
did. You picked them to
preseason
win.
predictions.
You picked them.
I did.
Doug,
I
he
picked
picked
them
them
to
to
win
win
the
the
West.
division. Arizona.
And then-
He loved Arizona. He's all over.
I don't
them.
know. I just like they're just a young, spunky team. I like that. I like their power hitter, Walker, at first. Corbin Carroll's awesome. Zach Allen's one of the best pitchers in the whole league, right from our area. I got to give a shout out to my man Nolan Jones out in Colorado, Holy Ghost Prep, right here in the Philly area, right in Ben Salem. I deliver packages to that school, Brad. So
Really?
I feel like halfway responsible for his success in the big leagues.
There you
But
go,
yeah.
Rob.
I don't know.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
looking
well-
at this. I'm looking at this going, you got 4 in Arizona,
Yeah.
3 at Oakland. Braves, big series, obviously. Mets, you're catching it at the right time with Alonso out. That's a huge help not having him then. Cubs, Nationals. That's a
Cubs.
They
At
don't do
Chicago.
well again. They don't do well in Chicago, but they kill the Nationals.
right. So I mean, it's you're just trying to win 2 out of 3. You want to talk about a run like that? To me, I'm looking at this going, okay, and you don't know what Marlin team will show up by July.
That's
Maybe
That's true.
the bubble bursts. Who knows? Maybe they're rolling, whatever. But I mean, that's a month schedule. I'll take that. That's to me. Get to 500 right now. This might be the start of the run. And sometimes it's not even like I said, like playing the A's. It's a tough. To me, you're supposed to beat them. Those games are harder to win than the games that it might be one of those knockdown, drag out Atlanta games or that rivalry game against the Mets that gets you rolling. That all of a sudden, boom, right? And it doesn't have to be a win. Something can spark in the middle of a loss that kind of triggers. Here we go, and next thing you know, they're rolling. So
I think they've won 6 in a row, the A's. I know they stink and they don't have talent, they don't care, and
but those games are scary because
Right.
you don't know what you're going to get. It's like playing a team in September like that. Like when we were in a pennant race, all the years I was lucky to play on teams that were in a pennant race. And in September, you're playing teams that just called up 30 dudes, and you don't know who they are, and they're bringing in a new guy every at bat. You're like, I don't know who the hell these guys are, and it's not disrespect to them, but we don't have a track, we don't have any data on them, we don't have any. No one's seen them. We don't know who they are. Those games are tough because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get a completely overmatched kid or you're going to get some guy who's happy to be in the big leagues and he plays out of his mind for 3 days and you're totally getting beat. So, sometimes, and to me, teams like Philly, it's not really in the matter of I've always said it's about when you play them, but when you are talented, as talented as that team is, in my opinion, it's about how you're playing. It doesn't matter what your opponent's doing. I know Charlie Manuel always talked about that. He never talked about wins and losses. He talked about his club. It's about, if we do what we normally do, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. We're going to give ourselves a chance to win. And I think that speaks to that club that we're talking about.
Why does a veteran team, a talented team, I agree that they're talented. They stink on the road, Doug. They haven't won a road series. What's the deal? Can some teams just not figure it out at home or on the road? Is it?
I wish if I knew that answer, I wouldn't be sitting in my living room right now.
Right.
I'd be managing a club somewhere. No, I wish I knew. There's so many. I don't know. And then there's teams that struggle at home that kick butt on the road. The whole idea was, always play 500 on the road, and that's kind of then win all your games at home. And I just don't understand. I enjoyed playing on the road. I really did. It made it entertaining. You get to see new cities, get to play in their park. Some places more than others. But you would think the Metrodome was a huge advantage for our clubs in 2001, 2002, 2003. Our team was built to play in that building as a home field advantage. Well, for a fact that teams don't like going into Philly. They just don't like it. It's not a fun place to go. So there's It's like you don't want to be all this great team at home and be average on the road. Like I think that team should be easily 500 because they have veteran guys. They know what they're doing. Nothing rattles them. But I think once they get going, it doesn't matter who they're going to run into if they can handle their own business and make sure they play well and stay healthy.
13-22 on the road they are.
I saw that.
19-11 at home. So like that's a good record.
19-11 is really good.
But look at the Marlins. They're 4.5 behind the Marlins. Marlins are 16-16 on the road and 21-13 at home. Like that's the difference in the whole first race for second place in the whole NL East. I mean, the Braves they're 8 games up. They're 20-15 at home and 20-10 on the road. So they're good everywhere. Then you get a team like Texas. Like Texas is 21-9 at home. That seems like that ballpark in Arlington. That's new now, so you probably didn't play there.
Did not play there.
But that seems like a launch pad. That seems like a really good home field advantage.
I feel like too, like younger clubs should probably, or usually you would think like I shouldn't say young, but inexperienced younger players tend to sometimes have a tougher time on the road. That was like the old, the veteran guys, they don't get rattled by much. Like you take the Phillies, for example, I don't really foresee, like knowing Nick doesn't get rattled by anything anyone says. So like, it doesn't really matter where he plays. Schwarber, he doesn't care. Those guys are like, that's what's crazy about it. Like that team is like battle tested, especially after the run they went on last year. And like I said, there's something to be said about the hangover. I mean, it's real. I mean, and that's where I was like, okay, they're at 500 right now. Okay, you still got plenty of time to go. And we were talking it wasn't 2-3 weeks ago. You're looking at going, I don't know. Now they're at 500. Once you get to 500, all bets are off. You can handle a bad stretch, and you can handle. Obviously, you want a good stretch, but even at 500, if you fall a couple games below at the All-Star break, you still have plenty of time.
Listen, if you're a couple games below with the way the playoffs are structured now, as long as you're within striking distance in the middle of August, you're fine.
And that team, for example, like they just have to get in.
Right.
They have to. That's all. Not. You're right. The playoff format has changed that adage of we've got to go and we got to go now because. No one really wants to play the playing game and all that stuff. But at the same token, like if you just get in, anything can happen. You play 1 game, 2 games, whatever it is, you get on a run. And that's where, that's why I go back to Nola Wheeler. Like, you have to face those guys twice in a 5-game series or win 2 out of 3. That's a tough out. That's if they pitch to where they're capable of pitching, that's a tough out for anybody.
It's like that with any team that has 2 good starting pitchers for sure. Yeah.
Correct. Uh-huh.
Yeah, if they have 3, that makes it tough in a 7-game series because you're probably going to have to face you're going to face them twice.
Right.
That's what made the Astros so tough on the Phillies last year because you had to deal with Verlander twice, Vasquez, Christian Javier twice, and who was the other Framber,
Valdez they had.
Yeah, I mean,
their bullpen wasn't exactly a slouch either. So like that's where they can handle that bullpen game they have, and that's what having 2 horses, sometimes 3 at the front end, do for you in a 7-game series because you don't have to use those guys to where you can save that guy because mostly game 4s, right? Game 3s or game 4s, like late in game 3 or game 4 in a 7-game series has that wild and crazy where it's a 9-hour game and they got 18 pitching changes because they don't have the depth that everybody, even back even 10, 12 years ago, like that game 4 was like the offensive game, right? Where like you guys, you're getting the 4th starter who hasn't, and it's not the disrespect to the 4th starter, but he probably hasn't pitched in 3 weeks because he hasn't started a game because the short series or down the road. So that's
they're just not as good, and they're not as good as the top 3.
Right, and that's usually there's a reason why that, and that's that's what in Boston, that's what saved us. I mean, Derek Lowe was the unsung hero of,
Derek Lowe was really good that year,
and Derek got taken out of the starting rotation. Like Derek, before the playoffs started, he got taken out of the starting rotation, and he ended up winning every clinching game for us. And he came up huge.
Yeah, he was clutch.
He was
a
huge.
good player.
Nasty.
Phillies played the Dodgers in 08 and 09 in the NLCS. Phillies.
I was there.
You were on the Dodgers that year?
Yep.
Oh, you were.
Yep. 09.
I mean, Derek Lowe, he just had that heavy sinker, and our lefties at that time.
That was earlier than that. That was before that. I'm trying to think. 09 was. We had Randy Wolf. Obviously, Kershaw was 21.
Maybe it was 08. They had.
It might have been 08 because my year was 09, and we had Wolfie, like Eric Milton's. We had who am I leaving out? Oh, Billingsley. Chad, was his name Chad Billingsley?
Yeah.
Billingsley. Rings a bell.
Kershaw. Yeah. Randy Wolf. Randy Wolf had a hell of a year that year. But yeah, like we wanted. I'm trying to think. Larry Bowe was on our staff, and we had a chance to go get. The hell was it?
Well, 09 you got Manny.
Yeah, no. 08 we got Manny. 08
you got Manny. Okay.
And 09 was Manny's first full year. But I know there was a chance. Gosh, who was it? Oswald? Was it Roy? I'm trying to think. But I know like there was somebody. And we were like,
Oswald came to us.
Yeah, Oswald ended up with the Phillies.
Right, but like
and unfortunately, he was disappointing with the Phillies, though.
It was either Oswald or it was. I want to say we had a chance at Roy.
Well, you had I remember you had Broxton was your closer.
Yeah, we had Belisario was a guy out of nowhere who threw a shot put it 100 miles an hour. He had a.
What year are we talking about here? 2009.
2009, right? But I know we had a chance to go get a starter, and I want to say it was someone like Roy Holiday, or it was somebody that like we were like, please, because you put him and Kershaw and Billingsley had a great year that year, and then, like, man, if you add Jeff Weaver was on that staff, you go get one more dude with Clayton, and it's like I said, we were young, we were like our lineup was deep, and Andre Ethier had a hell of a year. Andre and Matt Kemp both drove in 100.
Matt Kemp and Andre Ethier, boy, we're talking about two pretty
James
good players.
Loney had a great year. All our young guys really performed really well. Casey Blake had a hell of a year. Juan P was the fourth outfielder, which he kind of got on the back burner, but he had a heck of a year. Orlando Hudson was an all-star. So Foucault was our shortstop. Russell Martin was our catcher. We felt like I know on that club I was like, man, that would be really cool. Jim Tomey was our bench guy, our power off the bench, and we had a great bench. We had me, Jim Tomey, Brad Osmus, Mark Loretta, Juan Pierre, Rafael Belliard.
That's the bench. I mean,
we had some.
You guys had a really good team.
It was we just wanted to get back and let Joe go back in the Yankee Stadium that year. We felt like that had been a really cool World Series for us to go back as Dodgers and go back and play the Yankees for a ring. We thought we were pushing like hell to try to get Joe back there.
Because that's the year the Phillies traded for Cliff Lee, and it really put us over the top.
That might have been who we were. That might have that too. Because I know. I want to say that was correct because I know Larry Bowe was like, please, like, because it was one of those guys who's going, if we get him, we needed one more starter,
right?
And man, like that would have been a fun because I know we faced Pedro. Pedro pitched in that series for the Philly.
Mm-hmm.
I know we got. I think it might have been J-Roll walk us off that year. Game 5, we lost.
It was game 4. I was at one of the games with my dad, and we blew you out.
I know I want to say game 5 when we had a chance to make it 2-2. I want to say, and we got walked off.
Yeah, with Jimmy. Yeah,
that was Jimmy. Yeah,
Jimmy. I think it was.
And then we got it shoved pretty good up our butt the next game. I thought, if I remember correctly.
And then, because 08, you guys had Nomar. The Dodgers had Nomar. You weren't there. Your 09 team, Randy Wolf, you mentioned. Billingsley, you mentioned. Kershaw. Hiroki Kuroda was on the staff.
Kuroda was a good pitcher.
Vicente Medea, Jason Schmidt was on the staff.
How did I forget him?
Vicente Padilla was the one that got clobbered in Game 6 when you got eliminated.
He was scary. He was
Vicente?
scary. He was scary.
I always liked him as a Philly.
I mean, don't get me wrong, but he had that look of like, you've definitely killed somebody. Like, even as a teammate, it was like, it was kind of like, man, he's kind of like, he'd look at you like longer than normal, like that 2 to 3 second pause after he says something to you, and you're like, is he sizing me up to kill me, or is he just he forgot my name, or like what? But I remember facing him going, this guy might hit me in the head, he might hit me in the back, he might punch me out, I might get a hit, and he might kill me. But he just had that same facial expression. He had a good year. I thought, stats wise, I thought he did pretty well for us that year. I might be wrong. I missed most of that year with a torn up shoulder, but
he had a good year for them. He had a good year for the Dodgers.
He never spoke. He like never said a word. I remember if I heard his voice, I would have no idea who.
That must have been a little.
Yeah. Like I said, he looked at you like he was going to throw a voodoo curse on you when he looked at you. You're like this dude's gonna my head's gonna shrink if I don't say something nice to you. But man, on the mound, he was. I tell you what, he's the guy you wanted on your when you had to retaliate for a hit by pitch. He was the best. He retaliated immediately.
Good foxhole guy.
Oh yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. He didn't need a lot of he didn't need a lot of convincing to drill somebody. That's for sure.
I'm trying to get his stats here. 1.4 WHIP, 97 strikeouts. I'm sorry, 38. So not a big sample size. I only had 39 innings pitched in 09. For you guys, looks like he came over from Texas at some point in a trade.
Yes, but I mean pretty much everybody. I know Matt Kemp and Andre both drove in 100 because I gave.
Well, that was before Matt Kemp. Matt Kemp started dating Rihanna and then fell off
after that. I think that was the end of the year. I don't think it was. I was more aware of that come the next spring training.
Gotcha.
Maybe? Or was that the first year he was dating her? But I know, Kemp was 24. He drove in 100. Andre was 27. 31 and 106 for Andre, 26 and 101 for Matt. That's 34 bags. That was pretty. I mean, that offense was.
But look at your averages. This is the 09 team. Manny, obviously, he was at 290. Casey Blake was 280. Juan Pierre was off the bench at 308. Russell Martin, catcher, hitting 250.
Russell picked it up towards the end. Russell had a grind that year. I know he didn't. Nothing really came easy to him that year.
And Kemp was 297. Ethier was 272. James Loney hit 280. James Loney was an excellent defender as well.
James drove in runs. It was, and the crazy thing was he had power. In BP, Donnie worked with him all year to get him a leg kick and get him. He would juice balls in BP, and then he'd get in the game and negate it. And there was a guy on second base. He was getting. I mean, he drove in 90. They're three young guys, right? The three young guys. Loney had 13 homers and 90 RBIs. Kemp 101. Dre 106. Casey had 80, 79, 18 and 79. We had a squad. We had some. Mark
Those are bashing. That's bashing when you got that many guys.
The one thing that stuck out to me from that 09 NLCS was your shortstop was Rafael Furcal.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have his best stuff in the field. He made some errors that cost you in that series. And we just had Broxton figured out as a lineup. Jimmy had the walk-off. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Some teams, some guys just see guys better than others. But we seem to have a pretty good beat on your closer, Jonathan Broxton. And that was really the difference in the series.
Brox had he was teetering out of gas by then. I know his elbow was probably a little sore, but he was – you want to talk about a big country boy who was a teddy bear?
Yeah.
He was a teddy bear. He was – but he could throw the –
I remember him being a really big boy.
But he could move. I mean, his entrance from the pen was pretty epic. The big
So
boy,
it wasn't.
man.
So he was Steve Trachsel, in other words, coming.
He was. That dude was. I wouldn't. I see that dude in a country bar. I think I'd run out the door because he was a big boy. One of the nicest guys
he
on the
looked
planet.
huge. He looked huge on the mound. I just remember that.
Yes. We just like so we always felt like we were one guy away. Garland.
John Malmo split with Arizona, sweep with the A's. And the corner, I'd say, is turned, but I have concerns about the starting rotation, especially Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola's kind of not very popular in the city this season, Doug.
Just why? Numbers?
He's been giving up the long ball. It seems like he'll be cruising, then he'll have that one bad inning that just kills you. He didn't pitch good on Saturday against the Dodgers. He's fighting for a contract, so I think everyone was kind of expecting him, like, okay, you want to get paid $200 million, you're going to go out there and be an unquestioned, legitimate ace. You've spoken very highly of Aaron Nola throughout your time with us last year during the World Series. Playoffs, he was fantastic. I think he gets criticized because Philly fans are psychos. That's just what we are. We're psychos. And it's, what have you done for me lately? I think some of it.
You're passionate. You're not psycho. You're passionate.
We're psychos, though. It's okay.
Okay.
I think some of the criticisms of him is fair. I think some of it's not fair. Like, this guy's going to get it together, right? Like, he's going to get to the back of that baseball card. There's no reason to think not to.
How far off?
Let me get his stats.
Yeah, I'm not looking at this year, so I'm just curious because I never really looked at his in-depth stuff. So I'm just looking at how far off is he from, let's say, his normal stuff.
Let me get baseball right.
Has he lost any velocity this year, Rob?
You look at 5-5. I don't look at the record. I look at the other stuff.
Well, that's meaningless because the bullpen could come in and blow it. The Phillies were making a bunch of errors in the beginning of the season. They're still making a bunch of base running mistakes that I just shake my head at. They had one yesterday. Like, what the hell happened?
When did you guys get Soto?
Barry Soto. We traded Matt Vierling and Nick Maton in the offseason.
Rock have I been? What freaking rock have I been under?
We got Cody Clemens, who's
I had Soto in AAA.
Gregory Soto. We're talking about Gregory Soto, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen him pitch in a while.
That's him.
Gregory Soto pitched really well with the Tigers, but it's a lot easier to pitch on a bad. It's a lot easier to be a closer on a bad team because nobody's really paying attention than on a good team.
He was a train wreck. He threw balls everywhere. Everywhere.
He does seem like a little bit of that typical closer kind of head case kind of thing.
I don't know about head case. He just was like stupid stuff. Like, his first day in the big leagues, he got caught eating a burger in the bullpen. Like, that's like a no-no. Caught attacking his face. I'm like, dude, like, you sit in the clubhouse for a minute and finish it. Like, and I always leave my guys, like, when they get caught in the big leagues, like, don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything stupid. If you think you're doing it wrong, you already answered it. Don't do it. And, like, sure as shit, I get the phone call, man. Like, where's Al Avila calling me like, whoa, man, what happened? Answer the phone. Mr. Avila, yes, sir. What can I help you for? He's like, what can I do for you? What's going on? Like, why is Soto eating a hamburger in the bullpen? I'm like,
I don't know.
I would love to know the answer because he didn't do that here. But like I said, I always tell him, like, I don't know what they're once they leave under my house, like, I don't know what the hell they're going to do. So
how is it your fault when you're not even there?
That's the life we live, man. The coach's job is always selfless, but it's also like there's nothing more selfless than minor league managers. You take all the blame and get zero credit, but you know that when you sign up for it, and you just, yes, sir, let's go, we'll fix it. Yes, sir, we'll fix it.
But you know it's not really true though.
They don't do anything. They don't do much to the public eye to tell you, hey, great job, or even in private. It's just like, And that's I always say, like, give me all the head cases. I'll take them because I'll fix them.
But
like,
as long as you know that you're doing a good job, that's really
all I care about. All I ever cared about was that my players knew I had their back, and that no matter what and no matter how it came out of my mouth, that, like, you might think it's personal or I don't like you. We're here to fix you. I'll hear you. I'll listen to you. Once you're done talking, now it's my turn. Now we fix it. Now we go back. So there's that. That's the one thing about, especially at the AAA level, you got to do a lot of psychological psychiatrist type stuff. It's like, sit down. I always want to come back and give you. While I was doing this, to go. I didn't ask you about anything baseball related. Like, who are you? What do you like to do? It's like, well, I like to sit. Oh no, I'm just pulling off. I'm like, I didn't say anything about baseball. Like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And that kind of looked at me like, oh, let me start talking. So you have to get a relationship first. The only way I'm going to fix you is to figure out what makes you tick. Because some guys you get back, you don't even know who they are because, going to a new organization or whatever. But you just got to be like, hey, calm down. Like, we'll fix it. Just, you don't have to do it this second, but it'll get done.
So Aaron Nola, his ERA's up basically a run. Strikeouts. I wish home runs were here.
But look at, like,
he's got it.
He's got home runs in Philly is not a lot.
But like he's got a 1-1 whip. He's got a 1-1 whip.
Right.
Like that's not.
That's where numbers can be deceiving.
Career average.
Like if you could break it down, that's where it's hard to do that on the internet. But like you break down inning 88 last year. Like if you could get it like after 14 starts, what was his numbers? And that's kind of where you go back to, like, what's his track record? Like, is he a slow starter? Does he start fast? That stuff I don't know that much in depth about him. But, like, I'm looking at 14 games started, 7 quality starts. Quality starts, kind of a crazy statistic. It's kind of skewed, can be, because I think there's, to qualify for a quality start, to me, you don't pay your 1 and 2 for that. You pay your quality 1 and 2 for, seven innings strong of not domination, but like give your bullpen a rest day, like six innings, 3 runs. That's not what I want on my horses. But
3 runs in 7 innings isn't bad though.
Right, but 6, it's not, because you're adding another bullpen.
No, that's 4.5 runs a game. I mean, that's 4.5 ERA. That's not good.
It's even like I go more than like. Okay, 7 innings. Like, you want your horses to give one of your first 2 guys when you have a Wheeler Nola kind of setup. To me, one of them has to give your bullpen a night off, to where you can go, not every time because it's just too much, but like whether it's your starter or your offense needs to pick up your number 1 or number 2 to give your guys, to where you can bring in someone who you might not. Right, they have a 5-run lead in the 8th, where you can sneak a guy in for three outs, where you're not having to go, the minute you start chasing outs from the back end front, it's tough. I mean, like it doesn't matter what level it is, those add up after a while. When you're starting chasing outs in the 6th, when you got to start changing, like you start stretching guys, whether it's a game or you start stretching guys in the season earlier, that's usually a recipe for disaster.
That makes sense. Doug, I have a question for you. Okay, and this is regarding the Yankees. Okay. Right now they're going with Volpe at short. Okay, now Volpe's power numbers are not bad. I think it's
9, right? 9, something like
that. Like 9 homers, 28 RBIs, something like 13 stolen bases. But his batting average is now down to 187. At what point do you have to say, you know what, we got to send him down and fix it and fix his swing? Well, they have a shortstop down there right now who's hitting like 370. His name's Peraza, Oswald Peraza, and he's crushing the ball. I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to let the guy to get the guy out of the limelight and let him and just let him relax and get some instructional help to fix a swing, because they're all pitching him inside and he's getting sawed off every time he's up now.
Most minor league guys most of the guys making the jump can't handle the ball in. And that's the reality. But here's the problem. Okay, like in depth to that. It's who does the organization trust more? Meaning, if they bring the other guy up and he goes off, now what do you do? Right?
You trade Gleyber. If Volpe gets his game back together, you put him at second base and you trade Gleyber at the trade deadline.
Okay, but
we're not paying him $20 million a year to be a clown.
But you're not going to go into October with a rookie at second and a rookie at short as the New York Yankees. It's just not going to happen. And the thing, you look at his numbers, like, yeah, his average stinks, but no one cares about the average anymore. And that's where it goes down to character. Is the kid, does he look overmatched? Is he playing like he's overmatched? And let's break it down. I didn't like it.
Defensively, no. Defensively, he's been pretty good.
There you go.
When he gets on base, he's terrific. But he's hitting 187 and everything. They're pitching him inside. He can't seem to adjust. He's popping everything up. And it's. I mean, this has been going on for like a month now.
Okay, but
it's been getting worse and worse.
Yeah, looking at this, I look at inside of his numbers, like 260 on base percentage. That's not great, but like he's got 14 bags, right? He's got 26 RBIs and 9 homers. That's not horrible for a rookie. That's actually, and that's at the end of the day, roster construction. If you're looking for this kid for offense, you didn't build your team the correct way. And so that's where you're right. The adage is, yes, let's get him down there. But if he can mentally handle this part of it and he hasn't taken his offense on the defensive side of the ball.
No, he is not. No, he's been very good defensively. That's not.
Then I agree. You write him out. I mean, you just hope that somebody else offensively will pick up the slack. And at the end of the day, that team's going to go as far as Judge, Rizzo, Stanton.
Without a doubt. But I just wonder, is it good for a guy to be hitting 187?
Oh, it's never good to be hitting 180, because I guarantee you, that's what people don't understand. No one's going to put more heat or pressure on a player than the player himself. Like, no one wants to go up there and fail.
Yeah, look, every time you're up, you go up there and you look out at the scoreboard and you see 187, 190.
That plays in that plays into your head. It does, for sure.
If it was me and I wish I could be. If I was a ball player and I saw that, it would be bothering the hell out of me.
And that's why I've always said this: if you could leave the stats off the board and just play, you'd be amazed at how much different certain people would play. I was one of them. If I was hitting 300, I wanted to I loved it. But if I was hitting 200, I was like, man, I want to hurry up. Like, I can't look at this. And you know it. You'd feel it. But that's another, for an evaluator now as a coach, you see guys that take super relaxed at bats in spring training, right? They're fighting to make a club, and they make the club. And they come to you, and now that it counts, they change everything. And that's where, obviously, Boone and Cashman, they're seeing, he's just struggling. Well, there's probably mechanical adjustments he could make, but you know what? I mean, maybe they don't trust the other guy defensively, because now you're starting over from square one.
Well, everybody's saying that the other guy is actually better defensively.
Well, you don't know that in AAA. There's a lot of guys that can fill the ground ball in AAA that.
Yeah, no, I mean he played in September last year.
But September's not really real baseball.
No, I know September, and I know it's the old adage: don't believe anything you see in Morton September. I get
Correct.
that. I get
Correct.
that.
But I mean, you don't want to. And at the end of the day, too, there's one way of building confidence in a kid to say, "Hey, we're still here." And I'm sure they're having these talks with him. I'm sure he's been in the office a few times, being like, "Hey, man, relax. You're not going anywhere. Just play." And you can only have so many of those. But then it's are you? For example, Tom Kelly. I played for him my rookie year, and I hit 220 something, 229 or something. It was awful. 2 homers. It was awful. And I literally would walk into the field every day, like hoping they would come get me. Like, please come get me. Send me down. I don't belong here. I am not good enough to be here. And like the more I stayed, the worse it felt. Like I felt like and my teammates were fantastic, and they didn't do this to me, but I did this to myself. I was like, I don't belong here. Like there's nothing more embarrassing than being in a big league uniform when you don't feel like you're a big leaguer. And I went through it my whole year, and I was like, all I want to do is get sent down. And so like, it did mean a lot that he kept me there because everybody wants to be in the big leagues. But I was like, you're like, I felt like I would have been better off going back, fixing it, getting away from it, and then coming back. And I ended up doing that the following year. But at the same token, it's like, where do you lie in, like, because the kid's not going to tell you, please. The kid's not going to walk in there and be like, please send me down.
No, of course
we're not built that way.
No, but Doug, if Mickey Mantle can get sent down, right? I mean, if he can get sent to the minor leagues,
for sure,
which he did. I mean, and he got sent to the minor leagues, and it didn't seem to bother him when he came back.
No, it happens to a lot of players. It happens to almost every one of them. But it's like that's what I mean. Like from the player's perspective, like you're showing him so much confidence that are you going to ruin him in the long run, right? Are we going to go through this again next year?
That's the double-edged. I guess that's the double-edged sword, right?
Correct. That's the hard part. That's where you're still in it. It's not like you had a bad losing streak. I'm sure if his defense goes to then like they'll definitely. But I'm almost like they monitor everybody, especially the young players, and obviously he's a good clubhouse.
Well, Judge loves him, so
there you go.
That's probably that is and he has had a couple of huge hits. I mean, not last night, but last Sunday night when they put at the Dodgers, he hit a huge 2-run home run in the top of the 9th inning to give the Yankees a 4-1 lead instead of a 2-1 lead.
I mean, the hard part when you scuffle is you try to make it all back in one game, and you can't do it. And if you can just stay the course and just keep playing and just try to work from here on out, and that's a huge thing too. Like, that goes without saying. Chemistry is huge. Chemistry, especially in New York, is huge. And if you don't have it, and like that's something that like if you have Aaron Judge on underneath with your back, then you ain't going nowhere. And like I said, that's like maybe who knows? This kid might catch fire in 2 months, and they look like geniuses. And I hope he does, because you always wish for young guys that come up with a lot of.
Yeah, no, I mean the fans aren't getting on him. It's not that at all. I mean everybody kind of just wants to see him succeed because he just seems like such a nice kid. But
of course,
you got to start wondering when the team's struggling offensively the way it is, and needs a jolt until they get Judge back. You got to wonder. I mean, maybe that's something they should be doing right now, or at least consider, because they. But
again, you're going to look for a kid who just got a September call up for an offensive infusion. That's just I just don't. That's not the Yankee way. That's not a big market way. Like any team.
Okay, gotcha.
Like that's can it happen? Of course. A lot of young guys come up and catch fire, and all of a sudden they make an adjustment and they struggle. They find your boo boo. They find your kryptonite fast, and then it's a matter of how you fix it. So
that was the base. Go ahead.
That's the adjustment. He has to make the adjustment on the inside pitch.
And some years it's hard to stop. It really is. Some years you just can't. It's like I'm never going to fix this.
What about guys who have base running problems, like Joseph Herofsky here, talking about the Phillies Marchover running second base on a suicide squeeze?
Oh, it was so bad.
Stuff like that. I mean,
I wish I had another. If I had the answer to that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys right now.
What are these guys thinking on the base pass sometimes?
If I knew that, I would be. Yeah, I'd be on a
boat.
boat.
It was first and third. I forget. Bottom of the order was up, and Marsh was on second. I think
first.
Yeah. So they do the squeeze, it works, they get the run in, and then Marsh just tries to go first to third on a squeeze, and he gets picked off and tagged out a second. So
second or third?
He made the turn. He was on first. They did the squeeze. He turned around second in La La Land. And then they threw it to second and trying to get back to second. He gets it was a rundown. I think it was a rundown.
I'm trying my best to not sound like that old guy. Like, well, I played. I won't do it. But, like, coaching this generation, it's never been harder to teach base running. And trust me. And I tell my guys, whether it's my high school kids or AAA guys or big league guys, like, no one wants to hear this. Like, I wasn't that long ago as a player, and you talk about base running. We had Paul Molitor talk to us for blue in the face. And that guy was Yoda about base running. And we were pretty good at it. You lose me after 5 minutes. But there's so many things. It's one of those things where you think you have it until you think you know what you're doing until something happens in the game and makes you look really bad. And there's no other way around it. And it looks horrible. Like, when you mess up on the bases, let's put it this way. It's the old adage of a first baseman. No one notices a good one, but everybody notices a bad one.
Right.
Like, when you make a blunder, like I said, the difference is like October, right? It's just like October baseball. You make a base running blunder in April, it's on SportsCenter, maybe. You make a blunder on the bases in October, you're on the Weather Channel. Like, they're talking about you on the Weather Channel. And that's the importance of it, because it wins you and loses you games. And I don't know if it's, some, teach, I want you to be aggressive. You'll never hear me say a bad thing about you when you're aggressive. And then there's got to be a common sense part that gets thrown out the window. Like,
that's where I'm at. Like, you did the squeeze to get the run. I think it was Sosa or Drew Ellis was up. No, Drew Ellis got sent down because Bohm was back. Anyway, the bottom of the order was up. Like, it was great. Garrett Stubbs. It was Garrett Stubbs who laid it down, the backup catcher, because JT had the day off. He lays it down. They get the run. Dude, just advance to second and stand there. You're still in scoring position.
I think what it is, too, is sometimes
you're going back to the top with, I forget who hit leadoff yesterday.
Probably Schwarber.
It might have been Schwarber, yeah. Then, he gets things rolling. Now, they ended up, I think it was 7-2, 7-3 final yesterday. So
I get it from both sides. I mean, you try to make something happen. You see the third baseman might get drawn in, but if you don't see it, but that goes back to preparation. If you don't see it before you do it, or see it before it happens, and if you try to do it if you hesitate 1 second, you're out. And you try to see things. Sometimes I'm all for aggressive base running, and you're going to make mistakes if you do that, because I feel like you're quicker to make the correct. You trust your eyes when you're aggressive, and you question them when you're passive.
Marsh can fly. Marsh can fly.
So it's like, sometimes, common sense to me just gets thrown out. Risk versus reward. What's the reward you're going to have here? And I'm all for. I'm not opposed to the third out at second. I mean, the second out at third. Pardon me, but then again, like, a lot of times guys don't stress enough situations, right? And that goes in one out the other. Who's coming up? Who's up, right? Like, you got to know who's your leadoff today. Okay? I'm just saying, hypothetically, the Schwarber. If I'm on base, I'm in scoring position, right? I want him hitting with guys on base. But, lower in the order, take a chance, get to third, maybe get a fly ball. But, like, and the one thing, too, is that this is what a lot of organizations do, and this is what causes a lot of indecision for players, is that they preach aggressive base running, but then berate you when you make a mistake, and that causes hesitation. And that's, all you can do is prepare your guys the best you can, and that's what makes you a big leaguer. And that's what, and I said I'm about to leave for the 18U national team again in a week. And I did it last year, and these are the best high school players in the country, best juniors in the country, 100 of them. And 99% of them didn't know how to take a lead off first base. I'm just like, I'm dumbfounded. Like, where has no one ever taught you this? And there was probably, I think, off the top of my head, I can think of, there's probably 30 big leaguers on that field, and that's just taking a very, low number. There's probably more than 30 major leaguers on that field, and they don't know how to take a lead off first. And that's, and I hate to say this, and like, this is what I feel, is that spring training, you spend 90% of your time on 2% of the plays. You don't spend the most time on the things that are going to come back and that are critical. And that's something that comes from the top, and you better have the right teachers, and they better know how to teach and engage a group, because that's a very important aspect of the game that has gone completely out the window. Think about it. All it is and like, I'm not blaming the players because it's not important to them anymore, and that's not their fault. They want strikeouts, walks, and homers. That's all they want. That's all. That's what they pay for, and that's how much they had to increase. They had to limit the throwovers, make the bags bigger to even incorporate any kind of running game in the game of baseball. So, and that makes sense because that's where the game has gone to hell in a handbasket, because they've taken it away from some of the players, and that's where I look at it as, like, you're taking away a part of the game and you're trying to bring it back now. But for how many years does that? I had the luxury of coaching a kid named Zach Granite, who was a minor league player of the year for the Twins. He played for the Yankees, I think, in AAA a couple of years ago before he retired. But he stole 60 bases, hit 300, hit 10 homers. There's a spot for dudes like that. Like Brett Gardner wasn't always a home run guy. He was
never a home run guy, really, except for a couple of years.
Yankee Stadium, not saying he couldn't hit him, but like Brett gave you a nails at bat, played his ass off every night, and ran the bases like a crazy man, and it worked. And there's a spot for guys like that. And that's the part of the game that I felt like that's the exciting part. That, to me, that's the exciting part of the game, especially in October. Because not everybody can hit a home run in October. Everybody can. Everybody's dangerous with a bat.
See, Brett, they miss having a Brett Gardner now.
100%. It gives your lineup snarl. And that's sometimes, Joseph's talking about, Marsh overrunning second base. Well, sometimes that's a play like that where he goes first to third, right? The third baseman comes in for the squeeze, gets caught sleeping, heads up, base running, gets to third. That might spark a streak. That's an aggressive. That's one of those things you're watching the dugout that just gets you going. And that's sometimes the chances you have to take from time to time.
Hey, Doug, we have another question for you from Ryan Swoopy. Swoopy wants to know, why does Gregory Soto switch so much back and forth between a slide step and a windup and never sticks to one or the other? Now, I think you said you had him,
I had him for almost a half a year or 3/4 of a year. But yeah, he was really slow to the plate, like super slow to the plate. And I know I kind of caught the tail end of him, meaning he already been in AAA or AA before I was hired by the Tigers. So I didn't really get a chance to see him much on the way up, but I know he was slow to the plate. And I know the pitching coaches worked tireless because he's got an arm that's incredible. Like, stuff-wise, it's electric. It's all over the place. And, that's the way it was before he, got to the big leagues. And I think he actually got better once he got to the big. He became an all-star. But I think with him, we used it so much to try to see what was going to make his command better that day. And we did slide step a lot because he was so slow to the plate. But people think like the slide step stuff is more is just for the base runners. It's a lot for the timing of the hitter too. Guys with leg kicks, guys that like have a big time timing mechanism. The slide step's a big that will kind of mess with the hitter's timing. It's another way for a pitcher to kind of get a heads up on a hitter. I know I didn't like it as a hitter. I didn't like a slide step.
There you have it.
We have a basketball game going on right now. The Heat were 8.5-point dogs. I didn't take them.
What else is new?
In Denver. A lot of people seem to be on the Heat. They were up 4. It's on a commercial.
And I think they're up 6 now. They just scored again.
They're up 6. I mean, obviously this is going to be a tall task for the Heat to come back and win this series. Being down 3-1, you're going to have to win 2 games in Denver. We talked about the altitude. Just the Heat feel a player short. Now, Tyler Hero was supposed to be active tonight. I haven't seen him in the game yet. He usually comes off the bench. I don't know. Can a guy like that really turn the tide of this series? Denver
For
just
me,
better.
I would have liked to have seen him obviously not get hurt at all, because he was another one of the very few guys that we had I felt that could create his own offense, like off the dribble. But now it's like, the Heat are going to boil down to the Strus and the rest of the Vincent, Martin. They're going to have to make shots because they haven't shot well the whole series yet. And that's if Max Strus and Duncan Robinson and Vincent and even Martin for that matter, if they can shoot the way they shot the whole entire playoffs up until the finals, like this thing is not over. But the one thing I will say is that when their backs are against the wall, they respond. And we'll see. Are they do I think they're going to win the series? No. But I don't think it's over tonight. I just don't think they play their best when everybody counts them out, and I think that they just it all boils down to their other offensive guys making baskets.
Well, I thought the last game was telling too because the Heat were at home. Jokic got in foul trouble, and
that was their shot.
The Heat just couldn't.
Well, they did cut it to 7. They cut it to 8, 9,
and then it would just
cut it
balloon
to
back
8,
up.
turnover, and then boom, they'd hit a 3, or they get an offensive rebound and put it back. And whenever we had a chance to cut it to 6 to really make a push, they just answered. And that's what championship teams do. They answer when they. You're exactly right. I felt like when Joker got out of the game with foul trouble with I think they had 9.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they kind of made a little mini run. And then every time Denver answered, we'd miss a shot, and to cut it to where we could make it it was 4-point, 5-point game, and then you blink.
Yeah, I think the closest it got was 4 or 5, and then Jamal Murray's been excellent for Denver.
Yeah, they've been
a lot of big shots.
They've been unreal. It's just But I tell you, but Strus hasn't shot well. I'm looking at it now. He's got 8 points tonight, but 3-point wise, he's been struggling. From what I can't say. I hate to say the word struggle when they're in the NBA Finals, but I'm curious about Gabe Vincent's ankle. I don't think it's right, and he twisted it against Boston. He hasn't quite shot the same. I think there's something in there that he's playing through. They're all playing through something, but. We're going to need some kind of offensive output because the problem with Hero is he's a defensive liability. I feel, and he's not as good a defender as the other guys, but we need offense. Spo can figure out a way to get him going. I just, you hope I don't know, never been in the NBA, haven't played basketball since high school. I just don't know how you can take a month off, 3 weeks off from a broken hand and just get thrown in the NBA Finals and just pick up where you left off in Denver with high altitude. We'll see. But Jimmy Butler's got 4 points. Bam's got 14, and Strus has got 8. So that's
Bam's playing like a madman.
Well, he should.
And that was the guy. That was the guy I thought was the key to the whole success for the Heat in this series. Because if anyone is on the Heat is going to slow Jokic down, it's going to be Bam.
I just feel like we haven't shot well. Even Bam, as great as the numbers as great as he's played, we've missed a lot of 8 to 10 inside 10 feet. We've missed a lot of shots, and that's call it defense, whatever you want, but we just haven't shot well, and that's obviously the size of Denver is an issue, but we haven't made shots the way we've made them throughout the first the whole Eastern Conference playoffs. We shot better than what we have in the finals.
Then it looks like Lowry. It looks like they're going with Strus over Lowry tonight, at least so far.
Well, he's finally got 8 points. So hopefully
Strus has got 8 points.
He's got 2 fouls already, because that's another thing. His defense has gotten leap years better than it was a couple of years ago, or even last year. But that's the problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, we talked about it before the show, before we went live. The Heat are just one guy short.
Yeah, I just hope that it depends. What's it going to take to get? So I feel like we haven't had a draft pick in 20 years because but Pat Riley figures out a way that obviously I don't ever question Pat Riley. I think I saw a stat that been involved in 24.7% of the NBA finals in history between being a player, a coach, and executive.
I'll tell you a guy that they could get who just decided he didn't want to exercise his option. That's Fred VanVleet. He
saw that.
Yeah, you guys get him.
But that's the thing too. It's like we
really
don't just take like Riley doesn't take as anybody. You better buy into the stuff he won't. You know what I mean? That's where there's a lot of superstars that don't want to hear.
He did play in a championship team though.
So did Lowry.
Yeah, but Lowry's a lot older than him.
I agree, but I would.
Is he a Riley player? I don't know.
That's the thing. Like,
I haven't seen him enough to know that. So
it said a lot when he didn't go get somebody this year, in my opinion. Like he believed in these guys and they've responded, but like, okay, like now it's glaringly like the fact that they made it to the finals is amazing, but I don't think Pat's really content with just getting there. He's, I think we're one guy short. Just a matter of what we have to give up. What are you willing to give up for, one more guy? Because I think to me it's like that team you have to be voted on. Like you got to be accepted on the island. Otherwise, you're not.
Yeah,
coming.
I get it. I get it. That's true. I think he'd be one hell of an addition, though, if you guys were able to figure out a way salary if you could fit him in. I don't know what the cap situation is.
They gave Robinson a lot of money a couple years ago. These guys have got to be coming up at some point. I mean, I would think Vincent made himself a decent paycheck from the playoffs he's had, coming up. But I mean, like Kevin Love plays like 5 minutes to starts, and then you don't see him again the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, but
go out there and stand around and shoot a three.
Do they have can they create enough cap space next year to maybe get a guy like that on the team? Or is he?
You have to remember too, like Tyler Hero's only like 23, 24 years old.
Yeah, no, a lot of their guys are not paid that much. That's what I'm saying.
Right, that's the huge part. That's the crazy.
Other than Jimmy, most of these guys are
like they paid Bam. I know they gave Robinson $90 million, but $90 million in basketball is like not. It sounds crazy. No, it's like $90 million is a bargain. What a country.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, they might be able to work out some kind of a deal with him. I mean, money wise.
I just feel like that those guys never stop trying to improve. Like I've never been more glued into like summer league games since like watching the Heat. Because like you just kind of try to know their names because Pat Riley's in there scheming in the lab where one of these dudes is going to come out and so one of these guys are going to be a dude. Like whenever he drafts somebody, you're like, okay, I got to pay attention to this guy because if they saw something in to take him, like he's going to be good.
He's like Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge does the same thing.
They just find players like
they just know who to get. It's
correct. Like this Jovic guy we got, the other one, we took him in the draft last year, Nikola.
Yeah.
He's 20 years old. Like this dude, hey, if Pat Riley took you, you must be really, 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 you're going to be really, really good. Like you just believe in what they do.
Yeah. And I mean, he just knows.
Yeah. He's Yoda of basketball.
Yep.
Lot of smoke with Fred VanVleet coming to Philadelphia because they just hired Nick Nurse, and there's obviously a connection there. I don't know how you fit it in. I mean, he's declining $22.5 million to be a free agent.
What a country.
That's crazy to me.
What a country.
And then it seems like, I feel like Bradley Beal is always on the trade block because Washington stinks and can't figure it out. You got to think he's going to be on the move at some point. And then anytime someone pops up, Miami, because of Pat Riley, because it's Florida, because it's Miami, it's warm out, there's stuff to do. It's always a destination spot.
Yeah, and it's a great tax place.
That's true.
Yeah, you get that
a lot of positives playing for the Heat.
How much?
Yeah,
that tax stuff, Doug. Does that factor into these?
Oh yeah,
a lot.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, most definitely. But I mean, you're not going to go. you're all gonna. I mean, you're gonna get crushed anyways. But like, it definitely,
Right.
Texas, right? Like, that stuff matters. Like,
There's seven magic states, and Nevada's one of them too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm back to Alex's deal with Texas. That's a lot of. You're talking a lot of money when your contract's that much.
Right.
And then, look
Then
at
he goes to New York. He probably had to take. It was probably a pay cut for him.
Corey Seager. The list goes on. Those guys, like, there's, Pudge. The list goes on. Those guys play to that place. It's like, then that's the one thing though that I feel like the Marlins haven't really had a chance to capitalize on. That's something that's. I mean, it's
That's
they had
true.
it. They had Ozuna, Yelich, Stanton. The list goes on and on. Like, then again, if you're not winning with them, what's the sense of keeping them? I still say the Jose Fernandez death has cost that franchise, to set that franchise back at least 15 years.
He was.
Oh yeah, he was
Fantastic.
Kid created a buzz. He was fun to come watch. The people loved him, and it's like it was entertaining. He was competitive. He competed his rear end off. And then if you wanted to move him, you move a guy like that, you're getting a possible one or maybe two number ones, or a 1 and a 2. And that's how smaller markets have to survive. And that tragedy it set them back a long time.
Here's my question: how is Miami really a small market though?
They shouldn't be, because they don't draw.
They don't draw. Oh, all right. It just seems like that's a big. The Dolphins don't have that problem.
No, it's easy to fill a stadium, but they have. I mean, they haven't packed the stadium like they should. We've been god awful for how long? And like, they were good last year. They were decent last year. A playoff team, and they come. But I always say it's easy. It's easier to pack the house for 8 games than it is to do it, 81 times. In South Florida.
Okay.
Even the Heat games. I mean, people don't like. They don't pack it, and it's like even in the playoff
they never really did.
No, but if you look at what the Heat have done in the last 15 years, like they've been.
They're always relative.
They're relative, right? They're the most relative South Florida team for sure, and they still have trouble day in and day out probably filling that place to capacity, and that's a shame. But when the playoffs come, it's they're packed. As they should, but
there's still empty seats in their playoff games. Even
halftime makes me crazy. It's like, it's like the third quarter's going on and half the seats are empty.
I mean, it shouldn't be a small market because it's,
you're
population
right.
wise. Yeah, it's population wise. I mean,
there's just too much other stuff to do.
Okay.
That's just that's been the take on it forever. It's like there's just too much other stuff. Now is. Now at least the ballpark's somewhat closer, like being all the way out where it was when they played where the Dolphins played. It was, it was far from, like, it wasn't really in a city. It was like, they didn't really have all that atmosphere that you want around a ballpark, with the shops. And like, you go to other places and there's a downtown district where you have, a bunch of shops and restaurants and you can hang out in the street and all that. You didn't ever really have that where it was at Pro Player, whatever you want to call it, Joe Robbie, whatever the hell they call it now. But like even in Philly, you have the football stadium right there too. So that's kind of a cool feel to have both of them back to back. Like you never.
They got that big. They got that big bar right behind.
Right. That's other places you go to some places where, like downtown St. Louis, there's always stuff to do. There's people, like the game, there's action outside. Fenway, right? There's bars all around it. They're just
Yankee Stadium too.
Yeah, you don't have that feel. When they had it out in Pro Player, it was a tough get to, whether you're from Fort Lauderdale or Miami, and then you sit through a rain delay. At least now they have a roof, and I get it. I mean, I wish they would pack it better than they do. Would help them. It's like you got to, one hand scratches the other. You got to have to if you show up, they'll be able to keep some of these stars instead of just throwing darts at them from afar.
All right, we got a few minutes left. Sports Jeopardy's coming up next. I did want to get, especially with you, Doug, you're an athlete. You're always chasing the money. Got to make as much as you can while you can.
Nothing personal.
Does it ever stop?
But live golf. I'm a big golf.
Yeah, we didn't hit that yet, have we?
Yeah. I'm a big golf guy. I was a golf caddy for years before I became a UPS driver. Now I do UPS driving in this. So I love the game. I love playing it. Now this guy, Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner, kind of sells out. He went on 60 Minutes last July. You know, the blood money, the no pride, the 9/11 stuff. They don't like women and journalists and all this stuff. And then a year later, they're combining everything and he's taking the money. So now all those guys that stood by him and said, yeah, like, you're right. Like, this is kind of Mickey Mouse, this live thing. It's 3 rounds. There's a team event. It's all guaranteed. There's no incentive to work hard. Rory, JT, Cam Young, Spieth, John Rahm, Scheffler, all these guys that probably turned down hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars because they wanted to be loyal and do the right thing. Now these guys like Brooks Koepka and Phil and DJ just got $200 million guaranteed. And now starting next year, it sounds like they're going to be able to play in whatever tournaments they want around the world. So
I was going to ask you, if you're Rory, how do you feel? You talk about that.
I'd want to kill the guy.
Right. Like Rory, he was like the spokesperson, right? Like if I'm Rory, like you hung me out to dry.
They put their foot there. They said, yeah, this is wrong. We're staying with the PGA Tour. Like,
and he was adamant about fighting for it. And then like all of a sudden you're like stuck holding a grenade with the pin out of it going, okay, where all my support go? You know, like you just got ambushed, basically. You know, that's the part that I was like, man, if I'm Rory, I'm livid. Like I'm not taking this really well.
Came out of the sky, like out of nowhere. Like get a phone to my work, like Live Tour and PGA and DP World Tour. They're all friends now, and it's cool. And everyone came together. And I kind of knew something was up at the PGA Championship because they had a dinner with all these muckety mucks, and there was like Jay Monahan was there, Phil was there. I mean, Phil didn't have anything nice to say about Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner, when all this was going on. He was there. Rory was there. All these guys were like coming together. I'm like, well, what's this about? These guys are tearing each other apart in the media and everything. And now they're all at dinner together at one of the biggest tournaments. And now right before the U.S. Open, I don't like the timing of this merger either because like we should be focusing on the golf this week because it's the U.S. Open out in L.A. I love the U.S. Open. I love the setup of it. Anytime I can see professional athletes look like me, as close to me as you're going to see out there on the golf course.
You should have watched me play then. You'd have felt a lot better about yourself.
I mean, like, I'm like a 90s shooter. You play a lot, Doug?
I used to. I don't play much anymore. But
no.
I can't like this. I agree with everything you say. Like, I just can't, like, unless it was like, are we getting duped like the WWE here? Like was this like some kind of fake, like, almost
like in the works,
like
in the works from the beginning?
Like this is like some, Stephen A. Smith versus, Skip Bayless made up like argument that we just all got duped on? Or is this like I said, I watched Rory, and like I would totally see both sides. Like if I'm Phil and I'm towards the end of my career and they're throwing $200 million at me, like, yeah, what do you want? It red or green or black or blue? Which one do you want? And like I can see how like your purists want to keep it, the way it used to be too. But it's like, then you're going to have to do something. And then like I said, if I'm Rory, I'm like livid. I'm out here fighting this literally like almost solo in the sense that every time, and I'm not saying other guys didn't speak up because they did, but he was always the go-to guy, right, for the PGA Tour.
Him and Tiger took a stand.
While he's playing, like adamant, no, this is not how it's supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. And then like, you blink and 12 hours later, like they're all hugging each other. Like, wait a minute, like what happened to? So where do I stand now? I'm a ship with no harbor now. Like I just fought for something that you guys, like the two sides that were fighting, just had a ceasefire, and I'm the one stuck in the middle, going, wait a minute, what the hell just happened? So I'm interested to see like what happens at the U.S. Open? Like, how is this gonna play out? Is this gonna be a huge distraction, or is this gonna actually eventually? Because at the end of the day, I mean, like your purists in golf are gonna want the way it always was, and then money always seems a way to creep its way into everything. And like, don't get me wrong, like those guys deserve every penny they get because that sport's really, really hard. But at the same token, it's like everything in sports. Like everything's changing, right? Like, we want robo umpires, and like, well, there's some human element to that. The golf thing, you have the Live Tour, you have the PGA, the purists who want to keep it the same way. I just didn't like the fact that they just left him out by himself. I felt like no one filled him in on like what were about to happen, and
he found out about it on the app on his phone.
Right, like he just woke up. He just woke up one morning and rolled over. Was like, well, ain't that?
And like he was dejected. And exactly. Rory, I mean, I say he's not having a good year. He's 13th on the overall standings for the season in terms of PGA, and I don't think he's won, but he was totally dejected at the PGA Championship. He wouldn't talk about
sure.
Live.
Like it's exhausting.
This was like 2 weeks before this all happened. He wouldn't talk about Live. He didn't want to. He just wanted to do golf. He was done with it. So I don't know. Did he?
I watched something like it was Netflix about like I think it was Netflix. I don't follow it that much, but I'm a Koepka fan because he's a Seminole and whatever. Right. Like my girlfriend and I were watching it, and I was just like media becomes exhausting. It really does. And like when you're talking about stuff that doesn't really pertain to your game, it's a distraction. Whether you can those guys can mentally like block out more than they're the 0.0001% of the people in the world who can block stuff out, right? Because they're just that's why they're great at what they do. But still, you get tired, man, of I'm sure Rory, that's the last thing he wanted to talk about. And I'm sure every time he went somewhere, they were asking him about the Live Tour. And it's like, I just wasted so much wasted energy and time on fighting for something that you just gave away, like behind some closed doors. I felt like a after hours bar in some smoky room. You guys just handshook and just didn't tell anybody.
That's wrong. See, that's wrong. But I mean, for the fans' sake, it's good because everybody gets to play against each other now.
Correct. And but I kind of liked it just from the fact of like the Ryder Cup, right? You have like those guys play against each other the whole year, but now they're playing for their countries. There's a little bit different snarl to it. It had a little different kind of, right? You kind of, the guys were high-fiving and like as a team because it's always individual. I was kind of hoping they would do some kind of match between you take your 5 best from the PGA, we take our 5 best from Live, and we go at it for, whatever it is. I was, every time a little bit of competition kicks in, that's pretty good.
But it was so divisive that I don't think like that was ever going to happen.
Oh, never. But I'm just saying,
But now, like they've had the Masters and they've had the PGA Championship already with the both Live and PGA guys there. But Rory didn't lose out on $500 million for no reason. Now he did going into the U.S. Open. I think Rory's going to play well this week. He played well last week. He didn't win. I think Rory's going to play well this week. It seems like
he's never been my favorite, but I'm rooting for him this week because we can finish and he can sit there with his middle finger in the air to both people and be like, I'm the greatest alive. He's just like, you know what I mean? Like I'm rooting for him just because of the fact of what he's had to endure, right or wrong, whether you like it or not. And I'm not on either. And don't really have a dog in that fight, but like watching him adamantly speak, like you can tell, I appreciate passion. I appreciate, someone sticking up and fighting for something they believe in. And that's what made me a Rory fan of watching this stuff. And I feel like the first thing I thought was like, my goodness gracious, like this poor guy, no wonder, he's been battling this, but seemed to be solo now for how long? And he wasn't solo, but you know what I mean? Like he's always been the spokesperson. And now he's like, I just lost out on what? Because I mean, if they gave whoever, like you're talking what? You said $500 million. Like, what do you think he could have got on?
Well, there's a bunch of, and who knows what's true on the internet, but like apparently Rahm was about to go, according to rumors. And then all of a sudden there was this merger. So
like what do you think Rory turned down? Like guesstimate 250, 300?
I mean, Phil got 2. Like Dustin, I mean, like if you're Rory, I mean, I'm 300? Starting the conversation at 500.
Like I guess you
just
can
go
always shoot
down
high.
there. You shoot
Right,
the
you're gonna
moon,
settle.
and
You're gonna settle for $300 million. Like
like they play in Singapore, they play in Dubai, a place where Rory's really popular. Obviously, they play in America. Rory's popular here, and like if I'm one of those big three, like big three in golf is Scheffler, Rahm, and Rory. Like if I'm one of those three guys, like give me half a bill, and I'll think about it.
Right, but that's what I mean. This poor guy, like, not that he's hurting for money, but like again, you're still, no one's going to turn it down. But if they're giving it to you, and that's the one thing about. Last thing I'll say about money is just like, but as an athletic side, it doesn't matter if you're a baseball player, a golfer, or you're a business guy. If you feel that the guy next to you that you do the same job is making $5 an hour and you're making $250, you're not going to like it. Like you feel like I do just as good a job as this guy does, and he's getting paid double what I am. You're going to fight for what you feel like you deserve.
Like that's the only thing I didn't like about the whole live narrative. Like, and I'm sure that these guys got coached on what to say, like DeChambeau and Brooks and all those guys that went. They're like, yeah, well, we're just trying to like grow the game and do it a little differently. Like, no, you're not, man. Like, you got handed a big check and you went to go play for this golf league instead of that other golf, instead of the PGA Tour. That's why I like DJ so much. DJ was like, yeah, they pretty much like paid me 10 times the money to work like 30% less.
So, well, I mean that, but again, that's the truth. It's like I can go ahead and fight and be totally on me to make my money, but when they're going to pay me to do work a third of what I have been to make more money. I'm not. I don't think anybody in their right. The people that say they turn that down, I've never been in that position, and that's if you could make 10 times what you make now and work a third less, you'd be like, shit, where do I sign up?
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
And then you got the blood money bullshit argument. Like, correct. Okay, I hope you drive a Tesla then, bro.
Yeah, I get it.
Every time you go to the gas pump, you're contributing to that.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you drink a Coke or a Pepsi, they do all kinds of business over there. I wore Jordans to the Phillies. I wore my Jays to the Phillies game yesterday. They were probably made by 6-year-olds that make 8 cents a day.
Correct.
In whatever country. So I don't want to hear about blood money. Like, stop.
I hope they question the crap out of them forever on that. Like the PGA guy. I hope they just. I want you to reread his statement over and over and over again and be like, I want you to explain this.
Like to the commissioner. Oh, yeah. I think Jay Monahan, they should make him resign. If I'm Rory, I'm getting all the boys together and be like, yo, we got to.
Yeah, it's time for you to go.
Yeah.
You left this holding a grenade.
And now, like Jay Monahan, I'm sure he's not going to answer any questions.
No, it's
Rory's going to be.
We're only here to talk about the future, right? What was the line? I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm just here to talk about the future.
Is that what he was saying? I'm
sure that's what you're going to get coached to say.
But oh my God! And then like I'd be sick. I would be sick to my stomach if I'm Jordan Spieth. Or whoever, whatever guy, Scheffler, Rahm.
Anyone that got offered money to go to Live Tour and they turned it down, I'd be sick to my stomach.
Because I guess it could.
That would be tough pill to swallow.
It could have flopped, but like they have a bottomless pit of money in Saudi Arabia. They're not.
And if it did flop, at the end of the day, people like golf enthusiasts, whatever it is, whatever sport it is, don't they want to see the best compete against the best?
Correct.
Like eventually you can bring them back. Like that's the thing that I on one hand, I'm glad they're merging this just because like I want to see the best golfers in the world compete against each other. Right? That's what you want.
Yeah.
But like you didn't have to get so like cutthroat with the comments that were made to turn around and come back.
Phil, I love Phil because I love the way he plays golf. Like he either wants to win or he doesn't care.
Right.
If he finished second and last place is the same.
He's okay with either one of them.
Either one of them. If he doesn't win, I absolutely love that. He opened this big mouth about a whole bunch of stuff about like the 9/11 stuff, and like I think that didn't get Liv off to a good start. I think if Phil doesn't shoot his mouth off like that, I think the battle, it's less contentious.
It just sounds like you're tone deaf. Let's not bring that.
Yeah,
that's something you don't bring into.
And he's been mellow. Like I saw him at the Masters. I'm like, he's gonna play good this week. He finished 5th as a 53-year-old guy. I'm like, look, he's not shooting his mouth off. He didn't even have media time per se. They just kind of interviewed him with a bunch of reporters like off to the side. No like official. He just seemed at peace. He's like, yeah, I might have said some stupid stuff, but I'm just here to play golf now. I hope he plays good.
That's always the way. That's like the blanket statement when you don't want to.
He didn't want to rock the boat at all. But like that's not him, or hasn't been him. He's always been one to rock the boat.
That's that.
Yeah, he didn't want to do it this
like,
time.
Oh wait, I'm just here to play golf, and you're right.
I hope he wins because he'll have the Grand Slam then.
It'll be interesting. But then again, hey, you're going to get like people are going to tune in more, I think, than they would if this didn't happen before the U.S. Open. Because whether you're a golf fan, you're intrigued to see when they're all together, right? You're going to be glued to the TV to see reactions from each other. If there's any kind of they're cold to each other, are they cool, or you know what I mean? Like there's all that stuff too, and it all goes back to
because Rory and Brooks are going to be in the same group. They announced it today. All the pairings for the first 2 rounds.
Correct.
So they're going to be Rory and Brooks are in the same.
All goes back to Howard Stern, man. Howard Stern. People that loved him listened to him for an hour and a half. People that didn't like him at all listened to him for 2.5 hours. It's like it's the way he's winning. I love it.
Yep.
All right, we gotta get out of here. Great show. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to everyone who liked, subscribed, and shared our show. If you missed our show, make sure you download us in podcast form. Until next Monday, peace out, everybody.